Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ties That Bind DFW podcast. I'm your host, Amber Monroe. My goal is to foster unity within the community by sharing stories that I hope to inspire resilience, hope, passion, and we also like to spotlight local businesses as well. In a world that focuses so much on the division of social media and not everything you see is authentic, I'm here to bring the real. The views and
Mhm.
opinions expressed by my guests do not necessarily reflect mine or those of the Ties That Bind DFW podcast. All right, let's get into it. Guys, I am so excited to have a very good friend of mine on today. Her name is Brittney Wardlaw. We met a little while back, and I really got to know her and to see her beautiful daughters. And I just admire everything she's done as a mother. And she is just always on the go. And she has an exciting business that we're going to talk about today and a book as well. And I will let her do some of the talking now. You want to go
Yeah,
ahead and introduce yourself, Brittney, and tell us what you've got going on? Welcome.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Amber. And thank you for the invitation. I'm humbled to be here. Even when I saw that you were starting a podcast, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited for her because the personality that you have, the spirit that you have, the heart that you have, and even the idea of bringing people
Aw.
together and sharing with the world what everyone has to give, because we all have something to give to the world on purpose, right?
Mhm.
Thank
Indeed.
you. Thank you. So, all that to say,
Of
thank you.
course. You're welcome.
Yeah. So I am a, I have a shirt that my kids know about, my girls know about, and uh, it says wife, mom, boss, and I feel
Mm.
like that pretty much sums up, my who I am, my makeup,
Mhm.
what I do day to day. I've been married for almost 14 years to my
Mm.
best friend and partner. We met, we met on the plains of Africa. Um, we were actually
Oh.
going on a mission trip to Uganda and Kenya, and that's how we met.
Mm.
And it really influences and informs like just who we are and how our family operates and the values that we have.
Mm.
As you mentioned, we do have girls, lots of them. We have a starting five
Yeah.
of our girls,
Mhm.
11 to 2.
And they
They
are
keep us really
precious.
busy. Yeah. Yeah. I often reflect on how, like, y'all are going to be my best friends. This is crazy. Like, I'm
Oh.
raising people that are going to be my best friends. I love them right
Oh.
now. We in the thick of mothering, right?
Yes.
Because I got 11 to 2, right, and the needs are ranging, but I love that aspect of who I am as a mother.
Mm.
And um I am an entrepreneur. I'm legally trained, so I have been in law school and I've done a lot of different things with that degree.
Mm.
But I am an entrepreneur. My husband and I, we're entrepreneurs. We have multiple businesses at this point, and it has been a journey of stretching and growing
Mm.
and riding the waves of entrepreneurship. And an aspect
Indeed.
of the entrepreneurial journey has been the recent book launch. So that's probably the biggest focus right now.
Yes.
Hmm.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I would love to hear about your book and kind of what it is about, and then for sure anything else you want to tell us about either of your businesses. I would love to hear, and I know our listeners would love to hear as well. But yeah, go ahead and kind of fill me in on your book and what that's about.
Yeah. So it's called My Untold Stories: The Roads That Led to Liberation. And people
Mm.
often ask, like, what was the process, how did you decide, and how did you get to where you are with writing a book? And um the book was birthed from a really difficult time in and pivot in my life that I did not see coming.
Mm.
And that really speaks to the title of the book, which is My Untold Stories, right? But the other aspect of that title is The Roads That Led to Liberation. I
Mm.
went through a lot of things, right? I walked a lot of roads that led me to a space of freedom and liberation that I didn't even realize I needed. And I didn't realize
Mm.
um, that I was not free in, right? And
Okay.
so for me, Revelations 12:11, it says, we're healed by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony, right? And so for me,
Mm.
this book and the words that I wrote in it, it's not just for me and my freedom, but it's for others. I
Mm.
believe that I have given language to experiences that people have had, but not many people have been in position to share, right?
Mm. Okay.
They do not have the privilege, if you will, to be in a position to talk about some of the things that they've experienced, because if they do, the impact that it will have, it really raises a hard question. Is this something that I can afford to do, right? And so I'm
Mm.
kind of talking around it, but I can, come through the front door about what it is. I was working in higher
Mm.
education for about a decade, and I took a job. I was recruited to work in a position in administration and higher education, with the hope and expectation that I was being brought in to help change a culture that needed to be changed. What I
Mm-hmm.
found out when I stepped into it was that it was a little more, hey, we like what you look like you're bringing to the space, but we're not actually trying to implement the things that actually have to
Mm.
happen to facilitate the
Okay.
change. And I didn't realize that. So I went in like, oh, all right, this is what we're gonna do, guys. And, da, da, da. And very quickly
Right.
I found myself in a space that, people weren't real excited about what I had to say. People weren't really excited about implementing the things that needed to happen. And a lot of what I wanted to do was from a place of authenticity. Like, that's
Mm.
just who I am, right? And so I thought
Right.
I was being invited into the space to be who I am. And what I found out was, well, actually, we kind of need you to assimilate to what's already happening
Oh.
here. Um,
Oh. Okay.
yeah, right.
Hmm.
And what I didn't realize was that I had found a lot of pride in my ability to assimilate well, right? I thought,
Mm.
okay, yeah, that's a badge. Like, I can do this well. Like, I can change and be what people need me to be. And, I can pick up on what's happening here and make adjustments. And I was good at that. But then when it started to conflict with my values, I started seeing
Mm.
like, man, there is a level of compromise happening here and a level of complicity that I am getting really uncomfortable with. Like,
Oh
it's
wow.
crossing over from I'm adapting to the space to I'm becoming complicit. And it's
Mm.
harmful to people in this environment, and it's harmful to myself. There is a part of me that is
Mm.
dying. And I'm
Wow.
watching other people die, and I'm being complicit in their deaths. Right.
Mm. Oh man.
And so there was a crossroad of like, I had to make a decision like, no, I can't do this anymore. And so when I
Mm.
made that decision, it was the beginning of my transition out.
Mm.
And so I made a decision to resign from the institution. And as a result of that, it catapulted me into entrepreneurship. I didn't think that, oh
Mm.
yeah, I'm an entrepreneur and this is what I've, that was never a thing for me, Amber. I am very, I am very like, oh, let me follow this box and this structure and what's already in place. Like, I didn't think that I had it in me to be a creator, right? I didn't
Mm.
realize that
Okay.
that was a big aspect of who I am. I am a creator. We all are. And so when I left the institution, um, there was a lot of brokenness that I had to
Mm.
recover and heal from. And a place of healing for me has always been in writing. I journal my prayers. I write down things so I don't forget. I write down stories, like all of these things. And so when I left, I started writing about things that were coming back to my mind, things that I had
Mm.
repressed, things that I had forgotten
Okay.
happened, and they would just come back, and I'd be like, oh my goodness. And I would just write it down. And so a couple years in, I was like, this is a book. I'm writing a book. This is a whole book. Um,
Mm.
and so here I am, having published what happened, but also telling the story, not only, again, giving language to others that are having the experience or have had the experience, validating, people's experiences, but also healing in the process. And so I was able to publish that in October.
Oh
So,
wow. Okay.
hmm hmm
Um, I love I love your story, and I think it's so important. And I love the way that you worded it, giving language to people who have had those experiences, um, but didn't quite know how to label it or to name
right,
it.
right.
Um, and that's I've been in that situation before. I think everyone has, whether they realize it or not, where you see your story playing out and you're like, oh
hmm
wow, that's me, that happened to me,
hmm
but you wouldn't have brought that out of yourself unless someone
hmm
had kind of pulled it out, through something
Right,
such as this book. um
right.
yeah, I was going to ask, you kind of answered part of that, but have you always been a writer? Like, had you ever done anything like this before, story wise, or is it not story wise, but your personal story wise, or was it mainly just journaling that you did?
So what's interesting is, this is so, it goes so deep, right?
Mm.
I started writing, what happened. And as I'm writing and as I'm healing, I started remembering that as a child, I used to write stories all the time. I used to write down
Oh,
experiences that I had all the time. And I did not even remember that until I was going through this writing and healing process. And then I
oh
started to
wow.
remember, wait a minute, in elementary school, I wanted to be an author.
Oh
My
wow.
gosh.
Oh
Like when
wow.
I say it was completely off my radar, once I started
Mm.
um like healing in this space and walking through it, all of these other memories started coming back, things that I had repressed, and even in
Oh
during
wow.
this process, I started revisiting different forms of art that I used to do. I forgot I used to
Mm.
paint. I forgot I used to love to draw and color. I start sharing with my husband,
Mhm.
like, I remember I was in a gifted and talented program for budding artists in elementary school, in middle school, and they used to bus me to special. I forgot about all of that, right?
Oh
Because
wow.
when I started pursuing, education in my
Mhm.
career, as I have business degrees. I, have been through law school. I've been, legally trained, taking bar exams and all these things. It was very, um, it was very logic heavy, right? And
Mm.
I was not doing anything creative like I used to, but I also was finding my identity in this logic and reason. But it had really repressed an aspect of a big part of who I have always been and forgot about.
Mm.
So going to
Wow.
those healing spaces for me just on, if people talk about our inner child a lot, right? And
Mhm.
going back to that inner child, and that inner child getting the healing and freedom
Mm.
that he or she needs. And so, yes, I have been, but she was repressed for a long time. And going through what I
Wow.
went through, and having the courage to write it down, and having the courage to publish it, because girl, when this book got ready to be released, it was like a reality bolt hit me. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm about to publish my diary to the world. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I
Mhm.
wrote all this down, and I'm about to put it in print for people to buy. This is crazy. Um,
Wow.
but that was something that I needed to do, and that is something that I believe will be impactful beyond me in my healing, in my process.
Oh, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. I know that will help others and has helped others, by you telling your story.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's interesting when I feel like when we are finally like healing and walking in our purpose, I feel like a lot of times those childhood passions come bubbling up to the surface, and then it's just kind of an alignment like, okay, I feel like I'm in the right lane now. Um, and
Right.
I love that. I love that for you. I'm so glad I asked that question. I almost didn't because you kind of answered it, but I'm so glad that you shared that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
guess, oh, go ahead. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Um,
Mhm.
is there any particular, and I guess you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but what was the turning point when you were, you know, writing and like you said, you're kind of pouring your heart out, pouring your soul out and healing in those words? Do you remember the moment or what it felt like when you decided this needs to be published? Everyone needs to read this.
Mhm. Mhm. So it came in phases. Um,
Mm,
the first phase was when I was in the process of making the decision to resign.
mm,
It was a process. It was a
okay.
process because it got to the point we were in negotiations with this institution, right? We're in mediations and negotiations about, okay, are you going to stay? um, okay, we're transitioning to a resignation. Okay, so if you resign, we have to talk through the terms of your resignation. And so there was a negotiation about, okay, how much are we going to pay you in this
Mm,
resignation? And when we pay
okay.
you, you have to sign this NDA, meaning, okay, if you're
Oh,
going to leave, you can't talk about anything, right? And we'll give you X amount of money. And I talk about this in the book. And
okay.
for me, as the negotiations started getting more and more intense and they're starting to lock down on their number of how much they're going to pay me, I started to
Mm,
realize I don't think y'all have enough money for me to feel like I will never speak about this again. I
mm,
don't think we're going to come to an agreement because for me, it's going to have to be a lot because
that's
there is a
powerful.
value in my story that I
Mm,
don't think I'm going to be able to say, yep, that's enough for me to never talk about this again. Absolutely
mm,
not. I don't think I can live like that. So I made a
mm,
decision then and there. I'm not taking a dollar because there's too much that I have to share. There's too much that people need to hear. And
mm.
the thought of me never talking about it again, I think it would kill me. And so
Wow.
that was the beginning. It wasn't super clear on how I'm going to share it, what medium it's going to be shared. Maybe there was some bubbling of writing a book, but that was the beginning. So that was the first phase, right? So then
Mm,
the second phase was as I started writing it, you know, regardless of where you stand on, things that are spiritual, for me, I was having divine downloads. To me,
mm.
this is not normal of like what's coming back to my memory. Like I'm writing things and I'm blowing myself away because I was like, yo, ah, one, I completely forgot this happened. Two, the level of detail that I'm remembering right now, it is nothing short of
Mm.
supernatural. This is crazy, the details that I'm remembering right now. But I was
Wow.
like, yo, I just got to get this down. I got to get this down, right? And so
Mm.
as those things started happening, I'm like, yo, like I'm going back and reading it like, whoa, like I'm blowing myself away on what I just wrote, right? And I'm like, yo, somebody else got to read this. So that was kind of like the phase two of it, and then starting to talk about like, man, maybe this is something that should be published, like for real, right? And then the third
Yeah.
phase for me was I had a close friend, in Waco, and she kind of was in the background for years of all of these things happening. And she was like, I know this lady and she has done all things publishing. She's been an editor, she's been a
Mm.
writer, she's been a publicist, she's been all the things. And she's function like she likes to coach people through the process of writing a book. I'm gonna put you in contact with her. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't really know much about, where do I start? Where do I go? And she knew
Mm,
all the facets of the process. And she just came alongside of me of like, I could walk with you through this. And I was like, okay, okay, all
mm,
right, let's do this then. So that was the process of like responding to the doors that are opening, responding to the prompts that are happening inside of me, and just being obedient to where I felt I was being led.
wow.
So yeah.
I love, and I kind of interjected you. I love what you said about how when you realized there wasn't a price. Do you know what I mean? Like when you realized there wasn't anything that they could offer you that would be worth what your story is, worth to you and
Mhm.
others. I love that, and that's so important that people know their worth, and
Mhm.
that's huge.
Mhm.
And going into this interview, I didn't really know much about your book other than it was just kind of your life. And the more I'm hearing, the more I'm loving, and the more I can't wait
Mhm.
to read it. And I know it's, like I said, blessing others. And if this is kind of a loaded question, especially since you kind of mentioned it here and there, but before we go into kind of other business that you're doing, you and your husband, what is one thing that you hope for people to take away from this book? We kind of touched on it, but if there's any little tagline you'd like to share, um, go for that.
I would say freedom is for everyone. We are
Mm,
all supposed to be free.
yes.
What
Mm,
does it look like to operate in freedom? Because so many of us are literally in bondage in our mind, whether
mm,
we're in bondage to an organization, whether we're in bondage to something external, or whether
mm.
we're in bondage to something internal. There
Wow.
are there are levels of bondage that we have that are do not have to be and don't have to stay. And freedom
Mm,
is for everyone. So, what does it look like to walk toward freedom for you? Period. My story is it's unique, but it's not. We all have
mm,
been in a place where, man, I feel like I'm trapped. I feel like I am literally in bondage. And it's not always external, right? Like that's what I'm saying. It may be something
yeah.
internal. And for me, it was both.
Mm,
As I took the steps to be free from the things that were external, I started to realize, dang, I'm internally bound up in a lot of
mm,
ways. And recognizing those spaces of, man, I I have the key to free myself. So
mm,
what does that look like for you as an individual? So I would say that that is definitely and the one of the keys for me to being free was what I wear in my apparel, and that's faith over
mm,
fear. What does it look like to walk in faith even if your fear is there? Let your
mm.
faith be bigger than your fear, because that is
Wow.
sometimes what keeps us bound, is like, man, oof, I don't know if I step out, if I step out and do this, like, I'm scared. Yeah, you might be scared, but let that faith be bigger than what you're afraid of.
Mm, I love
Yes.
that. That's powerful. That's so powerful. Um, and yeah, that's something that everyone needs to know and be cognizant of at all
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, and everything that you've shared. I want to kind of shift gears and give you a moment to talk about um, one of your other businesses that you are doing. If you would like to kind of touch on that a bit and kind of share a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, I had my toe in entrepreneurship before I resigned from the
Okay.
institution. And because my husband, Gary, is a marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional counselor.
Mm,
And when we moved to Texas in 17, we had one toddler and I was pregnant. I was very, very, very pregnant. And we moved out here for me to take the job. And when we made the decision to come, he was like, look, I'm going to stay home, with the babies. Like, we don't know anybody out here. We're moving here, no family, no nothing. I'm gonna stay home with our kids. You go do your thing, and I'm gonna hold it down. I was like, okay, bet. So that was what we decided to do. He was a licensed therapist when we got out here. So after being here like a year, he was like, I probably should go ahead and put this degree and license to use.
Mhm.
And he was like, I'm thinking about starting a private practice. I know because we moved to Waco. He was like, there is not one single Black male therapist in practice
Mm.
in this city, and this
Wow.
city of 250,000 people. There's nobody. He's like, this is wild to
Mm.
me. He was like, what do you think? I'm like, yes and yes. Like, do it. Like, go. Let's
Mhm.
go. And so he started a practice, like just a small practice of, he would just see clients part time and take care of the girls. And so that practice grew. And so by the time I was, at my point of turmoil of walking away from the institution, he was still part time, but and
Mm.
that's part of my story. Like, we had the privilege to make a decision in that moment of like, okay, I'm going to walk away and you're going to step in. You're going to, I'm going to fall back. You going to move up and I'm going to hold down the home front and you're going to go, you know, tend to the practice. And that's exactly what happened. And so the way it connects to
Mm.
my story is not everybody has that privilege. I recognize that that was a privilege. Yes, we were
Mhm.
stepping out on faith because I was the breadwinner. I had the benefits, I had this, there was stability. And so if we're saying,
Mhm.
yeah, we're going to do full-time entrepreneurship, like, whew, okay, we're going to step out on faith and I'm
Mhm.
about to walk away from this very large institution that gives this very comfortable stability and monthly salary, all these things.
Mm.
Um, but we were able to step in faith and we were also able to launch full-time into entrepreneurship. So that's
Mhm.
been the bedrock of our entrepreneurship. It was, he started this practice in Waco and then he started a practice in the Dallas area. And that's how we
Okay.
transitioned to being in the DFW area. So that's our primary. The secondary is when I made a decision to resign, and this is something I couldn't have foreseen. And this for me is the beauty of my story and my testimony of like, man, I stepped out in faith. I didn't know what was happening on the other
Mhm.
side, but there was provision, God provided.
Mm.
When I
Yes.
decided to resign, um, for him to be, full-time provider practice, because my resignation was pretty public in Waco, it was
Mm.
right about the time that George Floyd was murdered and everyone was transitioning to
Oh.
recognizing the value of like, man,
Mm.
like, oh, racism is real. Like, oh, this is a real thing. Oh my goodness. And we're all shifting our focus to this emphasis
Mm.
on creating inclusive environments and creating equity and
Yes.
honoring diversity and celebrating it. That was what I
Mm.
did at the institution. That was what I did at Baylor. And so
Oh.
people were like, well, since you're not employed anymore, you mind, just kind of consulting with our business? Like we could use some advising
Oh.
right now. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, sure. So then next thing I know, businesses are coming to me like, hey, can you do a training for us? Hey, can you consult with us? And then it was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, all right, I guess I'm starting a consulting business. And so
Yeah.
that was the transition there.
Mhm.
Um, the last part of our, the other business that we have is a nonprofit, which
Mm.
was birthed from recognizing that um, communities of faith, communities of color, there's a lot of stigma around therapy, right?
Mm.
And
Yes.
we've been prioritizing destigmatizing therapy. That's another brand that we have. We have a brand that says, I pray, I talk, I see a therapist. And we wear it around
Mm.
all the time. And people look at it. Some people laugh. Some people snicker. Some people start having
Mm.
a conversation, but it's always attention grabbing. It's always a conversation starter because there's
Mhm.
stigma around therapy, right?
Yes.
One of the challenges with therapy is access. For many,
Mhm.
therapy is a luxury, right? I don't have the discretionary income to pay for a therapist, right? And
Yes.
so we recognize that that's a barrier. And so with the nonprofit, what we're working on doing is being able to create and generate revenue and funding to offset the cost of therapy to people that just really can't afford it, don't have the resources for it, because we don't want that to be a
Of course.
barrier to tending to your mental health.
Right.
So,
Indeed.
yes. So they've all got mountains and valleys. That's
Yes.
undeniable. When I say entrepreneurship is
Mhm.
a faith walk, girl, they have all the mountains and valleys that come with it, because it's not a walk in the park. I think if it was, everybody would do it, right?
Here, here.
But but we weather them. We weather them. We take one day at a time, and we don't give up. We don't give up. So that's that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That is great. Yeah, I wasn't aware of those businesses that you had, but that is wonderful. The focusing, on having a therapist for African Americans, and like you said, with men in general, it's, they don't necessarily want to go that route, but I think that's
Hmm.
wonderful. I love that God opened those doors for you into your consulting. Not the best circumstances, obviously, but from all those things at once, I feel like birth those opportunities for you.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And also your nonprofit. That's amazing. And, people are, you just turn on the news and it's obvious, people need mental health care,
Right.
but we all can't afford it. I think that's great. And what I would like for you to do, if you want to tell the websites or how to
Yeah.
find your businesses. And then what I'll do is I'm going to link those in when I do the posts on the various social media platforms. I'll link all these in there, but you can go ahead and kind
Okay.
of talk about where to find all your information at.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for just the
Mhm.
platform opportunity to talk and share. Um,
Of
so
course.
we're on social media, and we have websites. So for my book, my website is www.brittneywardlawjd.com. And you can order the book, you can order the apparel on the website. And people are always asking me, like, well, where do you want us to order the book? Like, what's best to support you? And it's wins, because the book can be found anywhere. You can literally get it Barnes
Okay.
and Noble, you can get it Amazon, you can get it any of those places. My website, you can order, I'll sign it, I'll mail it to you with a nice little bookmark and all these things.
Mhm.
And the pros of that is, the proceeds come straight to me. There's no middleman, it just comes
Okay.
straight to me. It doesn't count towards my numbers of books sale. That's the downside. And so I'm
Oh,
fine with,
okay.
right. I'm fine, but I'm fine with whatever you want to do. If you're like, I really want the convenience
Okay.
of Amazon, or this Barnes and Noble's right up the street, that's fine with me. Like, I just want the message to get out, and whatever you're comfortable with getting the message, it's fine. So I've got my website if you want a signed copy, or you can just get it at your local bookstore, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the things.
And
Um,
one more time, the name of it again.
Brittney Wardlaw, JD.com.
Oh, I meant the name of your book.
Oh, the name of the book. Oh, it's called My Untold Stories: The Roads That Led to Liberation.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to get that in
Yes.
one more time before you go to your
Yes.
other websites.
Yes, 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 yes. And it's in hardcover, paper, and it's also on Audible. So I know that there's folks that are
Okay.
like, "Oh, I don't like to read. I fall asleep." It's like, no problem. If you like my voice, I do read it myself. So
Okay.
you can get it on Audible as well. So, yes. So
Awesome.
that's
Mhm.
that. And like I said, the apparel is there as well. Um, our mental health practice, where we specialize in couples and families, and also in racial trauma. But really, my
Mm.
husband is a therapist, and he also has a team of therapists. He's got a couple in
Oh, okay.
Waco, he's got a couple in Dallas, And so, we always say that, finding a therapist is kind of like dating. Like, you don't have to feel like the first one is a good fit for you. There's options. We have bios
Okay.
so you can read about them. So you're like, oh, okay, that resonates with me. I would, I might connect with that person. We really
Mhm.
encourage you to do that. So that is
Nice.
therelationshipclinic.com.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
therelationshipclinic.com. We're in Waco and we're in the DFW area, specifically Duncanville. And so you have virtual options. You can see a therapist virtually, or you can come in person. We offer both.
Wonderful. That's good to know.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So that apparel is also available too. The I pray, I talk, I see a therapist. Um,
Okay.
we highly encourage, it, it just resonates with so many people. It will definitely be a conversation starter. I'm telling you now. But we highly encourage the wearing of it to destigmatize mental health in communities of faith, in communities of color, really in the world. So
I love that.
yeah.
Excellent. Did you have anything else you wanted to, any other websites to plug? Or are you good?
No, that's it. And we're on social media. So if you want to follow the mental
Awesome.
health aspect, the relationship clinic is on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find me on Brittney Wardlaw JD. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And I'd be out there on TikTok dibbling and dabbling a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, be on TikTok a little bit. But yeah, Brittney Wardlaw JD on any of the social media handles. Um, and then, of course, good old email. You can always email us, and we're not hard to find. I think if you Google any of these things, you'll get all this information.
Right. Most of that'll pop up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful chat.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Brittney, for wanting to come and talk to me and my listeners. I am uplifted and inspired by your story,
So,
and I know others will be too. But yes, thanks again for coming on.
yeah.
And I guess,
Thank you for having me. I
of
really enjoyed
course.
our time together. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring. Thank you for bringing people
Aw,
together. Like, this is great. Keep up the good
of
work,
course.
friend.
Thank you. Thank you. It is my pleasure. I appreciate you too. Well, thanks everyone for coming in for another episode of the Ties That Bind DFW. Listen in, and we'll be back next week with another great guest. Be blessed.
All right. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.